Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Triple M Brekkie, good morning to you. Well, I've been talking about it this morning, this crappy story, but all jokes aside, it's very impressive. And a mate of mine from my former role in Dubbo, it's the Dubbo Mayor Matthew Dickerson on the line. Mr Mayor, good morning to you.
I see that you haven't improved your humour with your move to Griffith. It still seems to be about the same level.
You know me well. This story, the 3D printed public toilets, very impressive. From my knowledge, the first time it's been done in a New South Wales LGA, or is it Australia-wide?
The first council in the nation that's actually used 3D printing to build any council infrastructure. So that's pretty exciting. But we didn't do it for that reason. We did it because we're trying to solve a problem. And the problem we've got is that lots of people want to move to Dubbo, which is a fantastic problem to have, but we just don't have enough housing for all these people to move to Dubbo. So this is part of our solution to solve our housing crisis.
Well, how is that the case? Because we're talking about a public toilet block, but essentially there's the potential to 3D print a whole lot of houses.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's where this all started. One of our councillors, Matt Wright, brought a notice of motion to council last year and said we should reserve some blocks of land in a future release of some council land, residential land, specifically for 3D houses. So we reserved 4 blocks of land on that future release. And that was quite interesting. That brought a whole range of organisations out of the woodwork. International organisations were contacting us saying, we want to be there. We want to start printing your first 3D house. And we said, hold on, that was for a future release. We don't actually have the land ready to go yet. But as soon as we do, we'll go out and tell people about that. In the meantime, there was a toilet block that had been past its use-by date. Basically, it was 50 years old. It was rusting. It was taking a lot of maintenance to keep it there. So it was scheduled for replacement. And people get a little bit concerned about a 3D printed house. What's it going to look like? Should I invest my money in it? But we thought maybe a good way to demonstrate to the community how this whole concept would work would be to go out to tender for our toilet block and again call for tenders just for someone that could 3D print the toilet block. So we did that. We went out to tender. We got applications come in, tenders come in as you would normally expect to see, and then we awarded the tender to one company, and they're now here printing as we speak, printing the toilet block.
All right. Now, there'll be a lot of tradies listening to this, Mr Mayor, thinking, what does that mean for us? 2 questions, cost and how long will it take from start to finish to build?
Yeah, both of those are impressive now and they're improving all the time. So to give you an idea about time frame, on the weekend, so 4 days ago, they turned up and started setting up a gantry, setting up some rails on the ground. Monday, maybe lunchtime, they started printing. They estimated it would take about 14 hours of print time to finish it. Now, they don't print 24 hours a day because the concrete they're using works better with a bit of warmth in the air. So at the moment it gets a bit cold in Dubbo, so they're stopping basically in the late afternoon and starting again in the mid-morning. By Thursday afternoon-ish, that'll be done. They can pack up their gantry and go home. Now, you've still got to do the fit out. You've still got to fit the toilet seats. You've still got to do the bowls, all the internal fit out. But the actual walls, so the external and internal walls, can be done with 3D printing. So it basically replaces the bricklayers. Now, you're right. When it comes to bricklayers and tradies, that might be a bit of a concern, but I'll just talk about cost briefly. $316,000, it's a public figure, it's a tender process, so that's the price that we're paying to have this 3D printed. And that compares fairly favourably. I looked back at the last 2 toilet blocks that we've done in Dubbo. One was done 5 years ago. It was $310,000, but again, 5 years, things have gone through the roof in terms of the building sector. And that toilet block didn't have as many cubicles as this one. And we did another one 3 years ago for $495,000. And again, that didn't have as many cubicles as this one does. So at $316,000, we think it's pretty good value for money. The estimation from this particular company that won this tender is that they can print about 25% cheaper than using traditional building methods. And I just want to touch on the tradies briefly there, Matt, if I may.
Please.
It's one of the things that as soon as people see automation, they think about jobs, and that's a fair and reasonable thing to do. But we can't stop innovating. We can't stop progressing because we're worried about jobs, because jobs will change. And if you look at the video of this particular site, there's some videos out there already about it, you'll see that there are people working on the site. They're not laying bricks, but they're managing the equipment. They're making sure the mixture of the concrete is right as it comes out. They're keeping an eye on things that are happening. So they're now doing different jobs, but they're actually being used probably more efficiently. The other problem is we don't have enough tradies. This is one of our problems, that we can't get enough houses built for all these people that want to come to Dubbo. We simply don't have enough tradies. So it's not as if we've suddenly pulled all these people out of work and they're all lined up at Centrelink. It's actually helping the work that's out there at the moment. And
lessening the load.
Lessening the load, that's right, sharing the load around a little bit more. And it isn't replacing every trade. We still need sparkies. We still need the plumbers. We still need people to do the work that's involved in building this. It just means that one particular part of it, maybe brickies, maybe there'll be fewer brickies needed as time goes forward.
All right, 316,000 you said was the cost, and maybe in another 5 years, that will be significantly lower again.
It's still very experimental, and you can see when you're talking to the people there working on this, you can see that they're actually modifying things almost job by job as they're doing jobs. They're still working out ways to do it better. How can we get the concrete mix a bit better? At the moment, they're laying about 200 millimetres of concrete per second. So that's the speed as it goes along horizontally. But they said the machinery they've got there is capable of probably doing 400 millimetres, but they've just got to get their concrete mix right to be able to double that speed. So it's all these little incremental changes they're getting. And in a year's time, I think you're right. I think it'll be even faster and cheaper.
I have reached out to the Griffith Mayor, Doug Curran, and he has seen the video, and obviously he's chatted with you before. I said, is that something that we might see in Griffith? And he sent me back a text and said, I would hope we could utilise the technology as well. So that might be something that we do see in Griffith at some point down the track.
Well, look, you're right. And again, there have been other mayors. We've talked about it. I've talked about it at different meetings. But I met with the Minister for Housing recently, Rose Jackson, and she's got a problem on her hands as well, because there are other places around the state. And I think of Lismore and Tweed, and I was only up in Lismore and Tweed a week ago, and speaking to those mayors up there, obviously there's a buyback process in place, so they'll have to find somewhere for those people to live. And I spoke to Rose Jackson about this concept of 3D printed housing. She was very excited about it, so she's very keen to hear how this toilet block goes. So I know it doesn't sound that exciting. It's a toilet block. No one gets that excited about that, but this is really just a trial for what I think we'll start to see in the bigger picture.
It is worth checking out too. You can go to our Facebook page, Triple M Riverina MIA, and I've shared the Dubbo Council's video. It's it looks very, very impressive. Mr. Mayor, before we let you go, you mentioned that this sort of grew out of that need for, or at least the idea of 3D printed housing. How soon do you think that will happen in Dubbo?
Well, I actually think now, seeing the success of this so far, and it hasn't been finished, but I think the general acceptance in the community and the success of that and the discussion around the community, I don't think it'll be that long. And if I had to put a time frame on it, I'd say when we finish that next residential rollout of land, which probably will be by the end of this year, I think those 4 blocks that we've got reserved there, people will be very keen to actually be the first one to live in a 3D printed house.
Dubbo Mayor Matthew Dickerson, very, very interesting. Great to chat to you, mate.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.